His recent woes notwithstanding, Embakasi East Member of Parliament Babu Owino continues to be the talk of town in the world of politics and governance. Now, what exactly portends for Babu Owino in the future of politics and governance? That is our conversation today here on yet another insightful and informative edition of Siasa Brigade, your go-to point on matters politics and governance. I'm yours truly, Richard Mwanjo. Now, with me on this conversation is none other than the only voice of reason in the world of Kenya's political analysis, the first of his name, Prof.Manyora. How are you, sir?
Wonderful.
Today you are literally wearing your brown.
Yes. I see you are wrestling with insightful and informative.
Okay.
You can just say infosightful. Infosightful.
Come on.
Then you have the two words together.
I can do that. I'm the
It's
producer
called
of the
blending.
show. Blending.
Yes. Continue.
Very well. Next time though.
Yes.
But aren't you afraid that your brand could be reduced to ashes, just the same way Professor Ndangasi has reduced Michelle Mugo to a shallow thinker?
No. Who says she has been reduced? No, that is Ndangasi's thinking. There are those who agree with it. But there are also those who think he was unnecessarily too personal.
Really?
And there are those also who are remaining Africans and saying in Africa, we don't beat the dead.
You don't dance on their graves?
No, we don't beat them. We just bury them and praise them and they go to their God.
What's your stand though on Michelle Mugo? Do you consider her a heroine in the world of literature and all that?
When I was growing up, when I was a young man, I read her. She was among the heroes we had in Ngugi wa Thiong'o. Those are the people who fired our imaginations as young people. And I want to leave it at that.
To leave it at that?
Yes.
You're not envious of her works?
Why would I be envious?
Your book is not out there as hers.
No, what do you mean? I have more serious works. Just that you don't read. And the sort of confidence I have in life, I have no time for being envious. I have such a serious confidence in myself.
You can scale to her heights.
I never feel anybody can threaten me.
Really?
Nobody.
Very well then. Let's get that off the way now, straight into our conversation. We're talking about Babu Owino, Member of Parliament for Embakasi East. And let's begin from the recent developments in the world of politics. That has to do with his recent arrest during the Maandamano.
Yes.
Now, if you look at the timing and the release of him after he was taken to jail, somewhat, do you consider that that was timely, just so to scale down his heavy gravitas and voice of reason in the Maandamanos? That was just one way of taming the success of the Maandamanos this far. I
think once Raila announced a 3-day period of Maandamano, the government was certainly going to get a little jittery and a little worried. If one day had been causing mayhem, about 3 days? And therefore, it would be natural for government to get not just worried and scared, but to go for people it feels. If they are out of the way, Maandamano will be less effective.
Very well.
And I think Babu falls under that category of people who, if they were pushed away, especially for Nairobi, the Maandamano will be less effective. And maybe that explains why the second and third day of Maandamano was a little low-key.
A little low-key. People
like Babu Owino, Gaucho, are inside, yeah.
But don't you think that
leaving
is one...
only a firebrand like Sifuna, So, Nairobi, if you don't have Babu Owino, Sifuna, and Gaucho, and maybe one or two others, there can be no demonstrations in Nairobi.
They are the silver bullets.
Yeah, those are the people. You need Sifuna for his eloquence and the toughness. You need Babu Owino because of his toughness, eloquence, and the way he's in touch with the ground, the way he resonates with the people and the people resonate with him, the way he's able to charge the young people, and because of his mobilizing skills, which he acquired even when he was a student leader. So you need those voices. You need Gaucho because of the informal settlement mobilization, the president of the ghetto. So once you have ghetto president out, you have Babu Owino out, you can live with the Sifuna.
I see.
And because even those who remain will be scared. They may not be as effective as they would be if these two are not touched.
But then again, don't you think this arbitrary arrest is one of the strategies the government will deploy over and over again just to tame and curtail Babu Owino, now that it worked this time round, him being in prison during the mass actions?
But remember, government also came out looking bad. So I don't think they are likely to want to repeat arresting Babu, and then you are not even producing before court until they apply for habeas corpus, whatever have these funny lawyer words, that they should be produced before court. So I don't think government wants to go through that and come out with egg on face, rotten egg.
Very well, rightly put there. Let's then advance this conversation and get out of Nairobi politics. And very recently, the self-proclaimed liberator of Luo Nation, Miguna, was at loggerheads with Babu Owino. He was trying to associate a number of killings to Embakasi East Member of Parliament Babu Owino, which actually elicited public outrage. But then again, there is one person who is really also trying to be influential in the Luo Nyanza politics and also in national politics. That's Miguna. Do you think going the death way, a highly emotive subject, is one of the ways he can tame Babu Owino?
Let me tell you something about public debates. And Miguna should know this. The moment you are perceived to be hitting below the belt, you lose the public. In any argument, whether you are doing it on TV, whether it's a written argument, you know, an essay of argument, you must never hit below the belt. Okay? You must never bring things into the argument that really serve no purpose other than to win you perhaps cheap sympathy. That doesn't work well. You don't even need to be an expert. You don't even need to look at the fallacies of argumentation as ably put down by scholars of yesterday, philosophers. But it's just a common sense even.
Rightly put.
Any attack on the person rarely wins you the argument. And I think Miguna should have known that.
Very well, sir. But then again, from where you sit as your footnote, do you consider that Miguna views Babu Owino as a potential and a lethal card when it comes to the relevance in Luo Nyanza politics?
You see, I do not know, but the little I understand is that there are people who think Luo leadership is up for grabs. I don't share that view. Miguna is one of those because he has not hidden it. He said he wants to liberate the Luos and therefore, by extension, become the Luo leader. And naturally, if that is his intention, he would not like Babu Owino because Babu Owino appears to be an heir to the throne, you know. Because if you put this thing to the vote, they just start, you go to Luo Nyanza and say, okay, Luos, we want to see who is your future leader between Babu Owino and Omin and Miguna. Miguna is a very good guy. He's my friend and very courageous. But I don't think he will get even a quarter of the votes because Babu Owino will run away with more than 90% of the votes. So here is a natural leader with all his weaknesses, if he has, and he must have some, and all the issues that some of which you have mentioned. Babu Owino seems to be a natural, organic leader, and my friend Miguna would be classified as a leader who wants to force himself on the leadership of the people. He has very good ideas. He wants to liberate the Luos. But that's not how politics works. Yeah, if it's a company, maybe, but politics, no. Politics has its own dynamics and the tides and ebbs, you know. So when the stars are aligned for an individual in politics, like Babu Owino, no amount of shouting can change situations.
Very well then. Recently, as Nairobi Review Company, we've been going to the streets and getting the opinions of Kenyans on just generally matters politics and more so city politics, that is Nairobi. And majority of supporters of both political divides, the major ones, Azimio and Kenya Kwanza in Nairobi, sort of have this foregone conclusion that come 2027, Babu Owino is definitely the governor of Nairobi County, as much as he hasn't really launched that bid yet. What do you think informs the views and this conclusion from that is domiciled in many of city residents?
You see, in politics, nothing is on a plate for you to take. Politics abhors vacuum. But more important, power concedes nothing. So there's nothing that for somebody you just go and get. But if that is the case, you can draw a parallel. You can draw some comparison between Sonko in 2017 and Babu Owino in 2027. When people were debating whether Sonko will win, I think I remember I was on Citizen TV and I told somebody, please, let's discuss other things. The governor of Nairobi in 2017 is none other than Sonko. And you don't need to like him. You don't even have to like him. But he's going to be the governor and is not subject for debate. In the same measure, Sakaja and the rest may not be happy about it, but 2027, if Babu wants to be governor of Nairobi, nothing will stand in his way.
Nothing will stand in his way?
No, nothing. Even if you look at the tribal area,
arithmetics,
every box he ticks, many things are in his favor. The demographics of Nairobi. You remember in 2022 last year, Baba had to prevail upon Westerners not to stand for governor, so that they can give way to who? To what do you call that chap?
The other
chap.
Yeah, true.
Igade,
Polycarp. Yeah,
Igade.
sure.
Because there was a Westerner in the name of Tim Wanyonyi who was going to get this thing hands down. He did not even need to do anything. He was just going to get it. Or if a Luo stood, for example, worse if a Luo stood. So by merely being a Luo, that already gives him a head start. By being youthful, he resonates with the youth just as much as Sakaja will. There are votes Sakaja got because of being youthful and educated. Forget about the issues of certificates.
True.
Because Sakaja may not have a certificate if you think so. But if he sits here and people with 10 certificates sit here, he knocks them 10 down, okay?
Flattens the mountain.
Yeah, of course. It's an intelligent man. You can see it. So, Babu is in the same category. Babu, if he came through ODM is the most popular party in this city. So you can see the boxes are being ticked, almost all of them. So for me, if I was asked to debate somebody about whether or not Babu will be the governor of Nairobi if he so desires, I would not wish to talk about it because it's a waste of breath.
It's a waste of breath.
Yeah, it's a waste of, you just get it.
You say Babu already has a head start.
Unless, but you see, unfortunately, for anybody going into politics, even with the odds and everything on your side, politics is a highly dynamic game.
Anything can happen in the 11th hour?
Between now and then, a lot could happen. Making it difficult for Babu to be governor of Nairobi. Something could happen and even catapult him to higher levels than governor. So politics is very dynamic.
Very dynamic.
But looking at the situation now, and if the same thing without much drama and change obtains until 2027, I think Sakaja cannot match
Babu Owino.
And it will be even more complicated for them because Sakaja has some Luya in him. So he's our son. We call him our son. He's our Luya. If Tim Wanyonyi stood, he's also a Luya. You can see how votes are now going to be split.
Paradigm shifts.
No, the votes are being split and leaving one side intact. Babu is also, I understand, is a Mudoniwa among the Gikoyos. So this is their son-in-law. You know, these Luos, they like looking for Gikuyu wives.
True.
So, but I think basically, I don't think for 2027, the discussion should be about who will become the governor. If Babu stood, he will just win it, hands down.
Let's advance that conversation a little bit. Now that you've talked of both Sakaja and Babu Owino have this resonating with the ground stature embedded in their name, and also being very youthful, which resonates with many of the youth plights in this country, in this city. Then what else can he embed in his political element so that he can have a competitive edge over Sakaja even when that time comes?
I'm happy you are talking about resonating with the ground. Remember, there are people Baba asked to vote for Igade, but they voted for Sakaja because of that. People were feeling him. The ground was feeling him. You get it? So the same with Babu. So there are areas where they will share
with Sakaja.
Sakaja. But you see, Sakaja will come with some baggage.
Which is?
Having been governor for 5 years, people always have expectations and you have not met them. You make enemies the moment you get elected into office. Why? Many people exaggerate the importance to your campaign. Mtu hata akikuwekea tu mafuta gari 10,000 na ushinde, sema kama sio yeye ungeshinda. So those, you build many enemies. And power is about distributing. Sindio? People want power to be able to be the ones distributing things. In the process of distributing, you can't please everybody, including your own friends whom you forget
along the way.
So that is the baggage incumbents brings to anybody running for any office, including that of any country. So Sakaja may also have that. In terms of your question, there is one thing that stands out which Babu Owino has to do.
Which?
If he hired me as a consultant, I will help him. But today I can just mention so that at least he can hire me.
We shall send him your red card after this show.
The transition between an activist and a serious politician, it would be Babu's greatest challenge. You must transit from activism. People must begin to see you as a governor or a president. You get it? If you don't take care, if you hang on there for too long, you can be up like Babu Owino, Babu Namwamba, who stuck there for so long. That tag has not left him. It doesn't help matters that even the way he dresses, like a young man, talking like a, so he has not transited to a serious leader. And I think that could be one of the things that informed him not being the CS for foreign affairs, because everybody thought he would get, having been a small boy in terms of caste in that ministry and very close to the president. So the biggest challenge to Babu Owino is to transit
from activism
to serious leadership politics.
However, though, it is through the same activism, political activism, that many have considered him a reincarnated Thomas Sankara, and which actually catapulted Sankara to the highest level in terms of leadership in Africa.
Somebody else has come up there again, the same.
The
young man, 45-year-old, yes.
Traore, I guess.
Yes.
Sure. Yes. Now, is it somewhat true that should Babu Owino continue in the same path that he is in right now, probably is the latter day Thomas Sankara of Africa?
You see, now you are making my consultants irrelevant, because I'm being forced to say things I should sell to Babu Owino. Because there is a gap in this country of a leader who is radical enough to depart from that has kept us where we are. The leaders we have are in a box. They can't think out of that box. We need some radical transformations from radical thinking. We need paradigm shifts. So as a young leader and people of his age, they must provide that hope that this country can move forward through paradigm shift. Because there are some people, I can give you a very good example of Mweraria when he was Minister for Finance. There was a lot of rot in the treasury, especially procurement. So he was asked, why don't you remove this? People say, but so now who will do the job? He's so tied to order, to routine, to what has been there, that he can't imagine
outside the box.
Outside, that you can do away with these people, you can dismantle all of them and come up with a new way of government procurement.
Reinventing.
So we need people like Babu Owino. That is the new route, the new direction they must take, without appearing too radical as to scare the establishments. Yeah.
Very well. As much as you're talking about some of those that he should embed in his element, let's talk about a little that probably he needs to tame down that you haven't talked about. Some consider that his political diction is one that could portend doom for him, which they have likened it to that of Moses Kuria and Senator Samson Cherargei. Politically outburst.
Now my check has gone. This is how I was going to get the check from Babu Owino. Now, that is part of transiting from activism.
Diction.
It is many things, including, like I mentioned, Babu Namwamba. It's even how you dress, what you say and how you say it, the company you keep, and a host of other things that are in political and public communication, which is my area and for which I would have gotten a consultant. But you have made it difficult now.
I will now get the check on your behalf.
No, he will not give me anything now. But I've hidden a few things.
You've hidden a few things?
Yes.
But we shall split.
Yeah, if he gives me.
But I'm an independent journalist.
I know that.
I know.
But you are famous for the brown envelope.
What?
The brown envelope. Journalists are synonymous with that.
You mean that's the writing on the wall out here?
For all journalists, we say, that's what people say, not me.
But I'm an economist.
You are also a journalist. Yes.
Very well. Before we conclude the conversation, there has been this long withheld, I should call it myth, that maybe without Raila Odinga's umbrella over the head of Babu Owino, then his political obituary will be underway. Do you consider that even in the near future, without Raila on the side of Babu Owino, then even his bids, whether member of parliament, governorship, all that are just a chase after the winds?
There's no gainsaying the fact that many of the Luo leaders are aware they are because of Raila Odinga. That's a no-brainer. It's an obvious thing. But among them, there are also people like Babu Owino who can hold their own candle.
He can?
Who can hold their own, yeah. In fact, if truth be said, Babu Owino contributes more to Raila's campaign than Raila. And that brings the issue of reward. Sometimes I'm surprised that when it comes time for reward, Babu Owino is not considered for many of these positions that are on the table. Remember, we said his presence during Mandamano Sifuna's presence, Gaucho's presence, and maybe 2 or 3 others we have forgotten. It's very critical. Without which the success of these things may not be where they are. And yet when it comes for reward, I remember there was a fight between Mbadi and Babu Owino.
Chairmanship committee
and
members.
things like those, and even the committee members, even by partisan, all these kind of things. Sometimes it does surprise me that Raila doesn't seem to want to reward the young man. But he's still young, and Raila knows the young man has a long time to go. He will be embraced. But the idea is, yes, you cannot go far without Raila, especially if you antagonize Raila. But there are those again, and I can mention 1 or 2, who can hold their own. Somebody like Millie Maboma. You can't say she's MP because of Raila. No. Unless she's antagonizing Raila, she can stand her own. Otienda Molo. These are people who can get their own votes. The other guy who wanted to become governor against a Raila candidate in the name of Orengo. And he performed well.
Jalango down here?
No, Jalango, those are in the category of people who got because of Raila. He's not yet quite there. He had a name, but it was not enough. So Babu Owino has what it takes to fight his own wars. In fact, that explains why, if at some point in the future he aspires for bigger things, like stepping in Raila's shoes, he should find it much easier than a whole host of pretenders to the throne. Yeah.
He can face, he can actually clinch that and put away the likes of Eliud Owalo, who seem to have been groomed to take over after Raila Odinga.
Those are very good people, but they are swimming against the current. The Luos are going this way and they are going the other side. So for them, it's much more difficult. I'm not saying it's impossible. For the Owalos, the Tomo Genders, the Kideros, they are going against the community interests. They are viewed as traitors. For them to succeed Raila or even get to Luo leadership in whatever form will be a much more difficult task than those within Raila team. Yeah.
Very well. As we conclude, this far, if you look at Babu Owino's development record in scorecard in Embakasi East, it's quite impressive. The writing is out there in the on the wall. Yes. Now, I'm asking this, probably in the near future, what more do you think Babu Owino can do for his electorate here in Nairobi that can really work in his favor?
Again, you see, you want me. You don't like me. You want my check from Babu to disappear.
Maybe it was meant for me, not even you.
But because I'm a good man, maybe he seems to have talked to you. A journalist without brown envelopes.
I don't even have his
Once
number.
in a while it is white. You see, for what you have done in Embakasi, and you saw he's up there, he's very popular.
True.
But elections are not about, that popularity is not enough. You must translate it into votes. And one way of translating the popularity in Nairobi into votes for gubernatorial arrangement is now to begin making friends across the county of Nairobi. Yeah.
Spreading beyond.
Beginning with the low-hanging fruits, where his major constituency is. You go there and entrench yourself like that, like make friends with other leaders, MCS and what have you. Yeah. And for him, it's not a lot of work.
It's not a lot of work.
Fortunately for him, it's not a lot of work.
So you're signaling the future is very bright for this young gentleman.
The stars are aligned for him. And when they are, the Greeks told us, some people begin to argue. But when the stars are aligned for somebody, there's pretty little you can do to dismantle them.
As much as they say kila msafara wa mamba ukosi burukenge, you don't consider Babu Owino the burukenge.
No, he cannot be a burukenge.
He cannot.
He's a crocodile.
The leader at the front.
And not like Munaga Angwa, but a crocodile nevertheless.
There you have it, from a man born Manyora, nuggets of wisdom to none other than Embakasi East Member of Parliament, Babu Owino. Of course, things that he needs to do so that he can have probably a brighter political future, elements he needs to embed in his character and in his political journey, and also those that he should drop along the way. That has been our conversation on this edition of Siasa Brigade. Until next time on the show, I'm just truly Richard Mwanjo. Always a pleasure.